Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on virtual appointments and how to secure your practice pipeline with as many virtual appointments as possible. We're gonna have a great webinar here for you today, describing to you all the ins and outs out of how to set up virtual appointments, how to set up Zoom in order to connect with those virtual appointments, how to integrate them with your calendars and your diaries, how to even set up payment systems, and if you want, even how to put it onto your website. So there's a lot of great material in here. We plan to be an hour, so organize your time accordingly. Put off dinner, put off the coffee for a little while, and we're just going to get through this thing. We're going to give you as much information and value as possible. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Laura Livesey, who's the Managing Director of Livesey Solar, and she will take us through why should you do video appointments. Laura, over to you.
Sure, yeah, let me just share my screen with you 1 second. Hi, everybody. Yeah, we're really excited to share with you what we see as the future of clinics. We're really looking at virtual clinics becoming part of the day-to-day of clinic operations and moving away, not necessarily moving away from in-person appointments, but becoming a vital augmentation to a clinic as you know it. So I think we're going to share with you, why do we see video appointments becoming a really important part of the future and something that you really need to get started on right now, as opposed to sort of waiting until it becomes an urgent situation to implement into your clinic. So really, I think what we've seen right now is a change. We've seen coronavirus has hit everybody around the world. The pandemic has created a massive, massive upheaval. And while for some of you, and maybe by the time you watch this, maybe all of you, but I think really right now, we're probably, some of us for quite some time, we're coming out of this problem, but some of you are not, and sort of stuck in the old world of thinking, well, maybe in the next week or the next month, the lockdown or the shutdown or whatever it's called in your country is going to be over, and maybe I can go back to normal. Well, as we've shared previously, and I really encourage you to watch this, is how can you actually survive the coronavirus crisis? We introduced the concept of the 5 phases of the current situation and what's going to happen to the market as we react to the coronavirus, but not necessarily coronavirus, the recession that's really hitting us all around the world and will continue to have ripples for the next several years. So really, we look at this as a demarcation line, is that you had a life before, you had an old life, the old way that you ran your refractive business. And really right now we have to really, the record stops for a minute. And then we sort of say, what's going to happen next? And really what's happening next is a new life. And virtual appointments is very much a part of that new life, to allow the market to adapt and people to feel safe and secure in response to basically social distancing, and the fact that we now have a threat, and possible a threat of death for some of our older markets like cataract, as something that needs to be addressed, and they need to feel like they can come into a clinic and feel secure. So I think when we look at video appointments, how does it address that? How does it address that need that your patients now have to feel like you can still see them, because they still have the same problems? Like before the coronavirus hit, they had issues with their eyes. After, they still have those issues with their eyes, and they still want to solve those problems, but they don't want to solve it in the way that they used to solve it, especially if your area still has a high risk surrounding the coronavirus. So I think what you want to do is you want to offer video appointments for many reasons. We've listed them out here, but really you're wanting to maintain your ability to connect with people at all times, even if your clinic is closed, or even if your clinic doesn't have the ability to deal with the same volume that you used to deal with. Because as we know, with social distancing, it's really depressing volumes in clinics, and you've really got to slow things out and stretch things out. And so you may not be able to serve as many people in person, but you absolutely can serve people virtually. And really, to allow yourself to maintain that connection with your patient base, this is really critical for you. The other thing that you want to do is to be able to have face-to-face appointments in the future. There's no need to wait for that. There's no need to wait for revenue even. We are going to talk about ways that you can get revenue, not only for securing spots on wait lists, which we'll talk about, and getting a deposit for that, but also even securing prepayments for surgery. So video appointments can be a revenue driver for you. You've obviously got the ability, and a lot of you are doing this, I know, to offer post-operative education. So you've got your optoms involved. There's no need to stop follow-up visits. There's no need to stop serving the anxiety of patients. You can actually reassure people and make them have that personal relationship with your clinic that you always have. You just need to do it in a different channel, video. The other thing is that you can do a format of your first initial appointment in such a way that you can pre-screen people. So you can create the relationship, yank that person off the market. That's a bad word, yank. Take the person gently off the market, but really form a relationship with them so that they're not going to go anywhere else because they've already bonded with you. So I think that's a really nice way to include in your funnel to serve your marketing efforts. And then obviously to answer FAQs. This is something that you could do until the cows come home. There's no need to wait for coronavirus, but now we have this excuse that we can actually serve people in another way. So we can put on webinars, we can offer questions, answer questions. And I think in terms of providing that feeling of a new normal, we can get the volume needs met of our clinic and provide people with the exposure to us that we need to, and move us into a new normal. And so video appointments allows us to do that more quickly rather than sort of waiting for the old normal to return, which, as I mentioned earlier, it really isn't going to. So I think in terms of that's sort of the reason why we're here today, why we're talking about this. I think there's a lot more to come on that. And really, we're looking ahead now over the next few years, and we see entire virtual clinics springing up as a result of this crisis. But we're not going to get so deep into that today, but I think we just want to start with the first tactic, which you really need to get up and running with. So we're going to hopefully convince you that this is something you absolutely need to do. And then we're going to dive right into telling you, well, how do you start using it? How do you market them? So Mike's going to tell you a little bit about that.
So let me just introduce Michael King, who is our resident pro at LASIK marketing. And he got an enormous amount of history in this business. He's got 15 years minimum in this business now. He's worked at every single every single chair in a laser eye surgery clinic. He's sat in it. He's done pretty much every single job. And on top of it all, now he completely devotes his entire existence to the generation of leads for clinics in the United States and further abroad. So we're so fortunate to have him on board. Mike, if you can tell us, how do we market video appointments, please?
Awesome. Let's jump to the next slide and let us get in it. And I think Laura said it really, really well, that I have the statement that I believe virtual consultations are here to stay. I do not believe that it's just a simple, once we come back from COVID or however you want to call it, that they're going to go away. I believe in talking to practices that are doing virtual consultations right now, they love it. Because if you think about the mechanics of elective surgery, what typically a practice has done has asked somebody to come into their practice to do a full exhaustive what we call a pre-op, if you will, only to find out at the end of that hour and a half where you spent time with the technicians and the optometrist to find out that, oh, I thought it was $200 an eye or something like that. And I think that what you find with virtual consultations, what I'm hearing is it really helps to, like, the patients, their sort of their guard isn't up in the sense that they haven't had to do a lot to be able to get the answers to the questions that they want. They haven't had to drive in the car. They haven't had to wait in the waiting room. They haven't had to, fill out paperwork. They've really been able to just understand whether or not laser vision correction or any procedure, premium lenses or whatever it is right for them, and doing so in the comfort and safety of their home. And the reality is that a lot of us, and we'll talk about the technology side in a moment, but there's a very positive, I think, global view towards, things like Zoom and the rest of it. So I think embracing that has really been able to, and I'll give some actual numbers from practices and what they've been able to do by doing virtual consultations. So let's talk about, how do you market them, right? So, well, first of all, the first place that you want to go to is your website. You want to make sure that it is front and center on your site, that it makes it easy for people above the fold on your practice to be able to look at it. Number two is you want to market to your actual list. Now, we have email list right there, but I also want to mention that texting is a phenomenal way to re-engage with your patients that you have in your database, if you will, right now. And so to talk about emails, and I'll talk about texting in a second, on the emails, you want to look at the nurture emails that you have, any email that you're sending to somebody where you have a call to action, you want to swap out, click here to schedule an in-office consult with the virtual, right? And so that really helps to make it easy for patients when they're looking through your emails to be able to take that next step. On the texting side, again, we are really seeing some pretty phenomenal results from texting our list of patients that haven't come in yet for a consult. One of our clients got, I believe it's 464 conversations or virtual consultations in the last few weeks scheduled from going back to that list from last year, which is phenomenal. And they already have 150 booked procedures between now and the end of June, which is mind-blowing, right? So my point being is that this is the time right now because the desire of patients hasn't left. They're still interested in laser vision correction. They're still interested in having this done. And you want to reduce friction in their ability to find the answers to the questions about whether or not the procedure is right for them. Same thing on social media is that, first of all, organic, you want to be able to post something up to let people know that you're offering virtual consultations. In addition to that, you also want to talk about some of the safety protocols and different things you're maybe doing in clinic to keep their experience safe. But I do think you want to let them know very much that, hey, maybe you've been thinking about, your vision isn't quite where you'd like it. Maybe you're challenged with your reading vision if you're talking about premium lenses, or your distance vision isn't as sharp, or you're frustrated with your glasses and contacts. Those are the types of things that are entering the conversation that people are already having right now. And you can be able to do that via video on social media. Retargeting ads and cold traffic as well. So you can be able to send serve up an ad on Instagram or Facebook that invites people to a virtual consultation. And what's great about it is that the ability for them, they're on their phones and whatnot, and it's not too much of an ask to go from looking at an ad on their phone to, oh yeah, I'll schedule a appointment that I can do on my phone. So that it's a very frictionless experience being able to do a virtual consult on your phone or on your computer. Lastly is on paid traffic, and so on Google. And so this is, I believe, that if you have not been advertising right now, there is a lot of there's a lot less competition right now that are advertising on Google. And that means that while the pie may be a little bit smaller, there may be a little bit less people searching for laser vision correction. I'm seeing right now, according to Google Trends, it's at roughly 50 to 60% of where it used to be, at least in the United States. And so what that means is that there's still people looking, and you want to be able to use the virtual consultation to kind of engage with them and be able to kind of move them down their journey. And then lastly, on your Google My Business page, you can let people know that you have virtual consults. Same thing on your Yelp page as well. So we can move to the next slide, but hopefully that gives you an understanding about what are some ways that you can be able to market it. And this is from one of our clients. This is right here, you can see, again, entering the conversation that people are having right now. Stuck at home and interested in LASIK, or stuck at home and thinking about LASIK, that's what's going on in their mind. And so we wanted to, again, in the copy here, we have safety and comfort of your home, and then they can just be able to schedule online right now. So that's as difficult, or not as difficult, that's as complex as you want to make it really, really simple, make it easy for people to be able to do that.
Yeah,
Rod, Laura, did you want to go ahead, Laura?
That's stage 3. So this is stage 3 of the 5 phases of what happens in the market following the introduction of coronavirus, and I think in how the market reacts. And I think this boredom phase is one of the phases that we originally thought would only happen once. Obviously, people go through a panic phase, and then they wind up in a boredom phase, and they basically come out and they once they've adjusted to their new routine, they do get bored. They do want something, as we all know, we've been in it for a while now. They're looking for something to educate and entertain. But what we also know likely is there will be waves, and we're seeing this in other countries. So this boredom phase is, if you missed it the first time, like say, for example, your country's already come out the other side, it's going to be coming back. So we have a crystal ball now. So this kind of marketing, you can get it ready now. We know that this is going to be, it's already, I mean, if you're in the US, in the UK, people are in lockdown, it's easing a little bit, but it's going to be back in the US definitely at some point. It's going to be, coming back. We're already predicting again in the UK. So I think we're still at home or not as free as we were before. And so we are restricted and curtailed in our activity. So even though it's summer, oddly, we have more bandwidth, we have more attention. So this is the perfect kind of messaging to give to people.
Yeah, and to show you on the next slide what it would look like from being able to send an email. And this is email copy that we had literally, just about a month and change ago, letting people know about virtual consultations. And so this is, if you had not sent out an email or something to that effect that lets patients know that they can schedule a virtual consultation, highly recommend it. We've also seen with practices that remain engaged on social media, we're able to schedule and really not have a lot of drop in scheduled appointments because they were proactive in doing weekly Q&A. One of our clients actually did a daily Facebook Live, really just designed to kind of be present and be there for patients to kind of answer questions. So if you haven't done that type of stuff, whether it be sending out an email or texting somebody, or even just being present on social media, I do recommend that you do that. So this is the letter that we sent out from King LASIK, which is obviously my brother, Dr. Joseph King. We sent this out to patients, and again, we've done really, really well at getting patients to be able to schedule virtual consults. Anything, Laura, you want to add to this?
No, I'm good.
Awesome. Let's go to the next slide.
Yeah.
So here's some examples that we scoured to be able to see. This is just over a month ago that these are posted, but you can see how this is how some practices have been very proactive on the organic side. So, if you read through the copy, I think the key here is to just look at how the copy is written. It's not designed to be overly scary, or it's really designed to be engaging again. And so, just sort of speaking of that human to human element, if you will, keeping it friendly and inviting them to schedule that virtual consult. I love what they did at ClearSight there, just to have a little computer that that shows Dr. Luke. But again, this is the type of thing that you want to be thinking about to keep patients engaged, is letting people know on social media that you offer virtual consults. We can move to the next slide if you like. And then let's talk about ads. So this is we're constantly trying to optimize and perfect our ad copy, but this is the initial ad copy that we went out with. You can beg, borrow, steal this if you like. And really this is about letting people know right up front that we're offering virtual consults. And as I mentioned, we've been getting really, really good results. If you stopped advertising, you definitely want to get back in, and now is a really good time to be gaining that attention, if you will, on Google. People that are searching for LASIK, it hasn't stopped down. It's probably, as I mentioned earlier, 50 to 60% of where it used to be. And this is the time, especially right now, that you want to be able to kind of be present, because not all of your competitors have gotten back into the market for advertising. So that's kind of all I want to say on Google Ads. We can move to the next slide. And then I believe, am I doing tech stack? I don't recall, guys.
You can, or I
yeah,
can do it.
I got tech stack. That's right. Yeah,
go
that's
for
fine.
it.
No, it's good. Let's go for it. So on the tech stack, you've got really just, we wanted to keep this super simple. We didn't want to make it difficult for you to be able to kind of implement this. And so we recommend using Calendly, which is an awesome tool that enables people to actually be able to schedule their appointment. Zoom is just that meeting organizer. We're on a Zoom call right now. And so this enables you to be able to actually meet virtually with that patient and for them to be able to see you. And I think it's, not everybody wants to do a Zoom call. I get it. And you might need to give a little bit of context. And sometimes we do offer people the choice. If they want to do it via phone, that's fine. But I love the idea of doing Zoom because you can also have a slide deck that if you've got a patient counselor or a technician, if the doctor's not doing the virtual consults, that they can actually be able to show that to the patient to keep a little bit of a structure to the actual virtual consult. If you are wanting to be able to take payment You can use Stripe to be able to, like, literally somebody can actually purchase if they wanted to meet with a doctor and you wanted to have them to pay for that appointment. Stripe enables you to do that. And then finally, you want to have some level of a CRM, which is basically a customer relationship manager that allows you, when somebody schedules that appointment, to put it somewhere so that your team can be able to kind of keep their notes on that patient. We have Zapier there because that's a tool that kind of connects all of this stuff to a CRM. That's a little techie, so I don't need to get into it too much. But this is as difficult as you need to make it. And I want to make sure we talk about the distinction between telemedicine and a virtual consult. This is all designed to make it super easy. This is not designed to show medical information when they're in the clinic and whatnot. This is really enabling you to have that organic, engaging conversation with the patient. That's my thoughts on the tech side. We can move over to how to set it up for Calendly. And so when you're setting up Calendly, you want to make sure, number one is the obvious one, to set your availability. And so you can integrate with Google Calendar, or you can actually set, here are these specific times that we want to be available for a virtual consultation. Then what you're going to need to do is to create the actual appointment type. So for example, if you wanted to have a virtual consultation for a laser vision correction consult, great. If you wanted to have a appointment type for a premium lens, you can do that as well. If you wanted to have it, if you've got multiple locations and you wanted to have it where, schedule for office A here and office B here, you could do that as well. So you just want to make sure it's clear and easy for the patient to understand exactly what type of appointment that they're scheduling. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you want to sync it with your calendar. And so this technology, Calendly, it has what's called an open API, and that's just a fancy word of saying it plays well with a lot of the other calendars that also have that open API, and Google Calendar is one of them. It's the most common one. So we just make it really simple, set up the availability on Google Calendar, and this plays nicely with it. You also want to make sure you've got some of the reminder texts and emails. And so Calendly, thankfully, sends out those emails for you. It sends out text messages to remind patients to come to that appointment. What's interesting is that we're not seeing a very high no-show rate of people doing a virtual appointment. And that's really, really a key distinction. I think myself, I wasn't really sure what was going to happen. I thought maybe it was going to be, are we going to have a higher amount of virtual consults no-showing? The answer is no. Now, what's interesting is that, you may have more non-candidates because you're not having a phone call with that person before they come in to kind of find out whether or not they're just presbyopic or whatnot. But the reality is that we're actually seeing a very high attendance rate for these appointments, because the idea, if you think of going back again to reducing friction in the patient journey, the option of going in for an in-office consult requires getting a babysitter, taking time off work, driving a car, filling out an intake form, sitting in a waiting room, sitting in a lane. Whereas a virtual appointment, we're all used to, like, hey, it's in my calendar, press a button, and then I'm there. So I think because of that, that's why we're seeing really, really good attendance rates for virtual consults. On our next slide, we're just going to talk again briefly about Zapier. That is what sends that zap, that bucket of information. So when Jane Doe schedules her consultation, it then sends it over to your CRM. And so you want to make sure, if you want to get a little bit more exotic in the emails that you're sending out, to have them a little bit more media rich, that's where you could have it all done from your CRM. So Calendly can send that information through with that tool Zapier to your CRM. And then you can send out, if you've got videos that you want to send out to patients or office tours or whatnot, and you can be able to embed the video link or image of that from your CRM. That's kind of the one way. That's a bit more of an advanced tool, not necessary to do right off the bat, but I wanted to let you know that is a possibility as well for you to do. And then on our next slide, this kind of just makes it easy for you to understand. You get that online scheduler link. You want to add that menu button, as I mentioned earlier, to your website. You want to send an email blast or text message to your list. Add that link to your social media pages. I'm going to talk about the middle one last, but that pop-up banner, potentially, you could give a bit more real estate on your website to let people know that you've got that virtual consults are available. But the last one, which is one that we are recommending our clients to do, is actually creating a page about a virtual consultation on your website. And it could speak to the safety the convenience of the virtual consult, and it can also kind of give an overview as to what they can expect. Why do I recommend that you consider that? Simply because not everybody knows what a virtual consult is. And for many people, it may be their first ever virtual consult, medical virtual consult they've done in their life. So I think providing a little bit of context can be helpful for a certain subset of people. Maybe more millennials are used to it. They get the idea of Zoom, but for some people, maybe on the cataract or premium lens side, it might be a new kind of idea. So having a page that maybe has a welcome video from the surgeon, again, talks about safety, convenience, and what happens at the consult, that may provide a little bit more context for the patient to help them feel comfortable with being able to join you on that virtual consult. Were you doing that as its own page as well? On the next slide, when you're actually doing the actual consult, key things to keep in mind. And Rod, I'd love to hear your talk on this. So I'll give just a couple of thoughts from my standpoint. It's very clear that if you're doing these virtual consults at home, you want to make sure that you're in a quiet, clean place, and use a virtual background similar to what I'm using right now. You can use one that shows that you're in the lane if you wanted, to give sort of that illusion of, hey, this is a medical kind of consultation. And I think that just kind of makes it less distracting, if you will, for the patient. And if you find it helpful as well, either sending them in their confirmation email or showing in your actual slide deck. So we've got, for our clients, like about a dozen slides that they can use. But having testimonials really helps. Social proof does help. And then lastly, having that presentation, I think, really does make a difference for people that, you could have a doctor to show up on the consult and it can go extraordinarily well. But the reality is that many of them may not actually be able to do this when they're coming back in clinic. So you're going to have somebody in your office do these, potentially a patient counselor, office manager, technician, or whoever you feel is best suited for this. But Rod, this is very much in your wheelhouse. So I'd love to, if you could talk a little bit about what people need to do to get themselves ready for the virtual consult.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think as with any kind of consultation, you should ideally, if possible, have some information before you actually host the patient. And I think one of the coolest implementations that we've seen that we were a part of actually is to build out a virtual consult approach where we offer the opportunities to book online using Calendly. And then the person types in, chooses the date and the time they want to book, and then automatically Calendly then hooks into another piece of software that sends them to a self-test. And what's lovely about that is that the self-test then is custom made so that the patient can then fill in their details about the kinds of things that they're looking for and what they are, a little bit about their own situation, so that the doctor or the patient liaison on the other end, when it's time for the consultation, has a bunch of information ready to go. So they can maximize the time that they spend at the actual consultation, almost as if somebody's kind of worked them up a little bit, and which is lovely because obviously time is precious. And at the same time, we would love to be able to get into a virtual consult space where we're kind of hitting the ground running with already some knowledge about the patient, and that they feel like, wow, this person has taken the time to get to know me already, and they're feeling pretty warmed up at that stage. So that's one way to get ready. I think in terms of having a really good approach in terms of a plan is also good. I think we have to recognize, I won't get into this too much because I'll get into this a little later, but we have to recognize that this is unlike, and I like Mike's earlier distinction between telehealth and a virtual consult. In fact, a surgeon that I follow mentioned that we call this teletalk, and I like this. It's not telehealth, it's teletalk. And the key here, the distinction is that we're having a conversation, and we should be having a conversation not necessarily about the kinds of things that we're used to doing with scans, about the actual diagnostic outcomes, but rather having a conversation about lifestyles, motivations, concerns, feelings, emotions, and plans. So those are the kinds of things we want to be talking about at a virtual consult. And then really at the end of that consult, be ready with your offer for the next step. Because another very big part of this is how are you going to take that virtual consult to move them to the logical next step, which has to be at some point a face-to-face consultation. And if you can identify a very clear offer at that stage, whether it's paid or whether it's a refundable deposit or, just a, even just a commitment, with a date. One way or the other, you need to be able to get a commitment to get to the next stage and get that patient moving forward and really warmed up with the hope that they're going to get their problem solved through you as their guide. And that's pretty much the prep that I want to talk about now, but I'll get into the deep work about it in my section soon.
Okay, so let's go into and show you some examples of what should it look like, what should it feel like, because there are a lot of ways that you can set this up, and you can set it up very basically, but I think you don't generally want to do that. You want to make this a seamless part of your branding experience, as opposed to sort of having your regular website and then tack on some plugin that is outside of your website and just feels like it doesn't belong and that it's an afterthought. So how do we actually make it feel as though it's a part of things? So we've given you some examples here that you can go and dig into a lot deeper, but I'm going to, actually, it would be easier. Maybe Rod, if you wouldn't mind, if you would, on your screen, if you wanted to share, I'll stop my share. If you wanted to share the first one and then have these ones ready, and then we can quickly take a look at these for you. So the first one we're going to show you is a clinic that's branded their experience out of Australia. They've already they've gone through denial, panic, boredom. They've come out the other side. They've entered the new normal. However, they've chosen to continue offering, they've chosen to continue offering their virtual consultations in addition to their in-person appointments. And as we have seen at the beginning of the coronavirus, we weren't necessarily predicting that. But as we're seeing now, we are expecting this to become a part of the new normal, that you offer both and you go after different avatars, different types of patients based on their unique concerns. So the first one is Vizan. So they have a couple of different ways of calling out their virtual consultations. So as you can see, we've got a suitability self-test here. We've got book a free assessment. And I think we've got down further on the page, Rod, we've got a couple of options for a call to action that shows different options here. So here's the first one. So get a free video assessment. So what happens when we click here? We end up going to a booking page. So you'll notice that it says get a free assessment, and then you go to a page that is a landing page for specifically a free video appointment, and it's very seamless. So you understand from the picture right away that it's got video in the picture. You know what you're going to get. It says book a free video appointment. Be self-reliant. So this is part of their messaging around the current concerns that patients have, that they don't want to be sort of in the middle of a pandemic without their natural vision working. And so, yes, Rod was just starting to scroll down. So then they see this and they go immediately to up and easy Calendly Booker. So immediately they've had one click, they get to a page, they can book a consultation. Yep, they click on the date that they want. And then they can easily pick any other date where they see a bold, they pick a time they want. The times here are a bit weird because we're dealing with a clinic that's in Oceania in Australia, and it's showing it for me, I'm in London. But then you have some options to customize here. You notice how they've made it look exactly like the rest of the website. So they've changed the colors, they've made it on gold, they've made the background gray here to match this site. They have their logo on here. And you can name this whatever you want. So you can name it an online video consult. Maybe you call it your first appointment. You can call it whatever you want to, and it should match your lingo in the clinic. So make sure that it matches up with whatever you call it. You have options to give them additional follow-up emails, as Mike was saying. So it says right underneath the expectation, what's going to happen. And literally, they just have to put in the information again that you request. And then we've asked for their mobile for future marketing needs, and that's it. So in this case, this is a video appointment, and then they also offer a regular free assessment. So they've got a couple of different options here, and they just keep this available all the time. So I think this is a good place architecturally on a website that you consider it around your contact details, that you want to work the virtual consults into your regular contact process, so that it's not sort of this thing that you might have on an image or on a banner or something, but not built into your site. Build it into your site. We've got a couple more examples just to show you how it can be customized to really smoothly and seamlessly fit into your overall brand look. So This site is not so much laser focused, but it's focused on the cataract market. In this case, here's right away, they have a pop-up about COVID-19. Right away, they get a video appointment. Click on that. They also have calls to action through the website that say the same thing, get a video appointment. Maybe you can just click off that, Rod, just for 1 second. Just click off the COVID and we'll just show the call to action. So look on the top right as well. All of the next steps for this clinic are video at the moment because they can't do anything in person. There's no elective surgery right now in the UK, so everything's video. So they've adapted their entire website to be ready to serve the patient and stay available to their needs, as we said at the beginning. So there's the call to action all through the site. And I think at the bottom, just lost my earbud there. At the bottom, we have a call to action that offers them the video appointment as well. So you can see how many times it's mentioned throughout the site. So then you click on it, you get a pop-up. Again, there's some branding there with the logo. They also called it an online video consultation. In this case, there's a fee attached to it. So this is where Stripe, the connection with Stripe to take payment comes in. So you can see how you can customize it to your clinic with whatever systems you have and with whatever you need, if it's paid or unpaid. Sometimes we have clinics that are doing a free LASIK consult, but then they have a paid cataract consult. You can do that too. You can have different appointment types. So it's totally customizable, totally up to you. I think in this case, they had some questions as well, didn't they? Once you book, they ask you specific questions just so you can qualify people. You can ask them if they have any comments about their condition. Yeah, we have some people that are doing keratoconus consults. So it's whatever you'd like to find out before the consult to help you feel prepared for that. And yeah, I think we've got a couple more to show you. I think something that's interesting about this is the data collection aspect of it, just with the booking, because a lot of times we go through our booking process, but we actually don't get these fields filled in normally by our staff, say on the telephone. But having it on the back end with something like Calendly and just having the system say, great, you're booked in, just answer these questions. And then people have the time as well right now. So they're like, no problem, I'll do it. I have the time. So they fill it in and you can be prepared, as Rod and Mike were saying, that you're ready for the appointment. And actually you have a better shot at forming that relationship and really, again, taking that person off the market. So here's one that is very much focused on cataract surgery. So as we mentioned, one of the opportunities with virtual consults is the ability to generate revenue. So in this case, we have a couple of different ways to do that. So this clinic is focused on, as I said earlier, they have a laser, they have a cataract, great. In both cases, actually this is testing this at the moment. In both cases, they're paid for, which is pretty unusual, to be fair. I think what we're seeing most clinics do is a free consultation. So I wouldn't at this stage advise a paid for laser consultation unless your entire market's doing it. I wouldn't do it because I think right now we're trying to get them engaged and get them getting into your pipeline. But in this case, it fits this model. But yeah, there's an expectation provided on the actual, this is basically a sales page for the virtual consultation. And you'll notice that this page has nothing to do with the surgery proper. We're not selling the surgery at all. This is not about surgery. This is literally about the next step in the sales pipeline, which is just the consultation. So actually this whole page is actually talking about how wonderful the consultation is. And this is not just marketing fluff. This is actually, we've spent the time to work with the surgeon to say, what are they actually going to get? And I want you to do that as well. What are you going to get on the consultation? And you should really think about, what can I do on the consultation? And you might want to expand the typical process that you normally do and think outside the box and think, anything that I possibly could do on the consult, do it, so that you're able to create value. So yes, there's a sales element to that. And I think we've got one more example. And this one is, there's a little bit of, we know that they've been booking quite a few consultations in the last couple of weeks around a number of different procedures, getting a lot of dry eye. Actually, right now we're seeing a lot of avatars being at home on their laptops constantly and getting some concerns around dry eye, or finally having the time, I should say, to look into it, probably more likely. But there we go. So right in the call to action on the site, book a video consultation. You notice how this one, same thing, very different coloration here, fitting into the site. There's the Calendly pop-up. So you can sort of see how the Calendly, the structure of it looks the same, but it fits nicely into these different sites. And here we have a couple of options. So We have one that's free with the optometrist on the left, and then we have one on the right that is paid for with a surgeon. Something to consider as well. If you have less time, I know a lot of you have gone back to work recently, so we're seeing that you have less time. Great, have somebody else on your staff, train them up, get them ready to do these consults. They're gonna continue, the need for it continues. And that's a great thing. If you're back to work and busy, that's a really good thing. So I think the mechanism of this one works the same, but I think we just wanted to show you that you can have different people involved, different staff members involved, different options, free and paid for. So I think those are some examples of the branding side of it and how it actually works in principle and practice on your website, just so that you can kind of see that you can play with it, you can customize it and make it fit in with your practice. Yeah, let me just share my screen 1 second so that we can see where we're at.
I gotta agree with you on that. I don't think that, I mean, I guess if the surgeon's doing the virtual consult, you could make the argument of making it paid, but
Yeah.
I'm very much of the opinion that, well, what I'm seeing over here right now is that there's this pent up demand in the United States right now for people who are interested in laser vision correction. And the model that you could consider is maybe after a month of being able to do surgery, you could move towards all in-office consults are paid. Some practices are doing it where you go from a virtual consult and they're still doing the pre-op quote unquote as a free visit. But I think a lot of clinics are wanting to move where, just because long-term, it's going to be difficult to have it where you're able to do these free consultations in office with just limited capacity in clinics. So I think that's it's an interesting way to kind of think about it, is that now you can do a lot of this stuff online. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're actually, I think a key distinction is that it's preferable. I think we have to really, that's part of the new normal. It's actually preferable. Like it's not the second best. And I think that's what we're saying, is that this is actually something that people are realizing that we want. I think we're all starting to feel working at home is, not all of us, but I saw a stat, I don't know if anybody knows the percentage, but it's a huge percentage of people. Like I think it's more than 80 are realizing actually they're more productive, they're more efficient, they're liking their life more. So people are really getting into this way of being. And I think that virtual consultations fits well into what your avatars will prefer. So I think, did anybody want to mention WordPress integration, self-test integration?
I think I've already
touched
on it. And basically, you've shown exactly how we can integrate it into WordPress. I would say that the WordPress integration is nice, definitely, and it's something, if you have access to somebody who's technical and who can provide that for you, then that's fantastic. But I think a couple of distinctions need to be made here. Number one, you can set up a lot of the things that Mike was talking about in his tech stack without any need to integrate it onto your website. That's the kind of, like, we'll call it quick and dirty way to do it. If you're in a hurry, if you're in a rush, or if you don't have access to a lot of budget, most of the tools that we've explained to you are, like, very, very accessible monthly, like £10 a month, £19 a month, or $10 a month, $20 a month, that kind of thing. It's not a very, very expensive setup. So, and here's the thing, unlike other people who are offering virtual consultations on a mass level, in the sense that they're kind of getting you onto their platform, these tools, they don't take any revenue from you. They're not going to take a slice of your surgery. They're not going to take a slice out of your consult fee. This is all yours, and it's yours forever, as long as you keep paying the monthly fee. And I think actually, in terms of expansion, look, people may be offering you very small slices of pies right now, or big, that feel attractive that they're going to take. But over time, these things are going to really take off. One of the examples that we shared with you, I won't say which because I don't want to betray a trust, but one of the examples we shared with you, they just started offering virtual consultations just last month. And we got this thing done in about 5 days. We got it onto their website, and he has now booked a record number of consultations. He's never had as many consultations as in 1 month. And 67 or 6, I think it's 62% of those consultations were booked entirely on Calendly, and not one person had to make any kind of phone call or discussion before the consultation was made. The other thing I want to mention too is our client elsewhere in Australia, actually, we implemented Calendly onto their website back in September. And since then, now at this stage, 98% of all of their consultations, whether they were face-to-face before this pandemic hit or virtual now that we're in that situation, 98% were all booked via Calendly without one person having to speak to anybody on the phone until that person had already booked in. So, you know, this is the future, guys, and people are most definitely going to be adopting this. I mean, it's just kind of like the way that we adopted, you know, booking tickets online, doing our banking online, shopping for groceries online. You know, when do we ever want to go out anymore? We all just want to stay inside and, you know, tap, tap, tap on our computers. But anyway, if we can take it to the next step, yeah, we're just going to yeah, exactly. We talked about Zoom virtual backgrounds. I think that's a nice point. Look, for me, you know, I'm happy with my background. I don't have any distractions behind it. It kind of, you think, you know, has a few personal bits and pieces. And if that works for you, that's great. And if you want to do a virtual background, I think that's good too, especially if you've got stuff going on in the background that you don't necessarily want to clean up every day. So, you know, or if you're a private person and you'd rather not have somebody see, you know, your opulent mansion, you know, if that's the case, you know, just put on the virtual background and, you know, pop up a cabin or something. Or like Mike said, you know, pop up an optometric lane. That can feel very professional. I mean, I saw a surgeon today. How did I see him? I saw him on social media, but he actually was wearing scrubs doing his virtual consult. So that's kind of cool. You know, I think,
yeah,
you know, people want to,
nice.
There you go.
Nice,
So,
you're in a lane.
yeah, go ahead, Mike. I don't know if you show up, but just there you are.
Yeah, there we are. You can see, you can find these online, just whatever is the most appropriate. If you want to take a picture of your practice or of your waiting room or your lane or whatever, you can make that your virtual background.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk a little bit about who should book, or sorry, who should host video appointments, okay? And because I think this is a common question. You know, doctors want to know, you know, like, look, maybe I've furloughed my staff, or, you know, I don't have, you know, phone people to deal with this, or, you know, who should do this? So here's the thing. I see this in a couple of stages, and chances are, you know, this new normal is gonna roll out in lots of different stages. But here's what I think you should do while you're not too busy. Okay, so if you're packed and if you're busy with consults already, and if you've got surgery on the go, look, this is not the model for you. I'll get into that model in a second. But if you're not doing much, then this is perfect, because this is a fantastic opportunity to really get in touch with your patients and provide really good value. And yes, I would say virtual screenings, as a surgeon, I would suggest they should be free. Look, it's just 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes of your time. If you start charging 100 or 150, or trying to imagine that this is anywhere similar to, you know, what you should charge on a face-to-face basis, I would say you're probably doing yourself a disservice by putting an unnecessary barrier, because a lot of people right now, they don't know what virtual consults are like. They don't know what to expect. And really, in the experimental phase, I would reduce as many barriers as possible. So this is what I would do. Virtual screening with the surgeon for free if you're not busy. Then, you know, you can certainly, at the end of that virtual screening, transition it into, look, if you like what you've heard here, it looks like you're suitable, you know, based on our questions and answers, then let's have an in-office pre-op. And, you know, maybe you can book it now, maybe you can't book it now, you put them on a waiting list, but in exchange for that, that should be paid. And when should you get payment? I believe you should get payment at the end of that virtual screening. You want to create that commitment. It could be nominal, it could be a percentage of your treatment, it could be refundable, it's up to you. But the key thing is to get a commitment from the patient so that you can move these virtual screenings that you've spent some time on and make sure you monetize those opportunities in the back end. Of course, you're going to have surgery in between there, and in-office post-op will follow. Obviously, that's still going to be with you or your optoms. But look, as to Mike's point earlier, clinical space is going to be a hot commodity. The amount of money you're going to spend on that space is not going to change, okay? However, the amount of money that you can take in exchange for that space is going to dramatically reduce, at least for the foreseeable future, for the next 12 to 18 months. So clinical space is at high premium. And to Mike's point, I would try to avoid having anybody in there that doesn't have to be in there. So if you can virtually screen them, that's great. If you can have people who are already paid and committed, that's good too, inside your clinic. Obviously, you have to do the surgery inside your clinic. Obviously, you have to do some post-ops inside your clinic. But after that, as quickly as you can go back online, back virtual with the post-ops, that's even better. And I know a lot of clinics can go right back to that stage, you know, after potentially a month. So, you know, if that's a possibility for you, if you can manage that, and maybe you space out, you know, maybe you triage things in such a way that you bring people who are a little iffy, you know, bring them back in, but people who are really straight and narrow cases where you don't have to worry about them, then yeah, definitely, you know, let them go virtual, and then bring them back in if there's an issue or, you know, if there's a question. So look, that's the step so far. The next step, if you can proceed the slide for me, Laura, it would be what happens when you're busier. At that point, it's really, really sensible to put a patient liaison onto these virtual screenings. How do they do it? I'll get into that really, really quickly. But the way I see it is it's a merging of what they always did on the phone, well, if they were trained right, and I'll share exactly what I mean by that, and a little bit of what they would do at the beginning of a consult when the person comes in. So it's the merging of that, and I'll show you exactly what that means. Obviously, I still think that should be free. Look, why put these barriers up in front? This is, you know, 2020, it's very, very difficult to get patients to pay at scale, to get patients to pay before they've ever met you, okay? It's possible to get payment in exchange for a pre-op though, and we do see that all the time. Once they are over the hump a little bit, they get to know you, 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, they feel good. I've seen easily patient liaisons getting 10% for surgery fees, and in some cases, in this situation, getting full payment in exchange for an actual surgical booking that is a reserved spot in the queue because of the pent-up demand. So that's a possibility. We're not going to get too deep into that, but I'm just telling you, if that's possible, you can certainly get a nominal fee. In the in-office, you obviously, it's optom and surgeon then, you have a full staff again, surgeon for the in-office post-op, and then a virtual post-op for the optoms. It's entirely possible. Again, what does this do? This branches out your geographic area. It enables you to pull in more patients from areas where there might not be clinics, where it's maybe somebody who would never have traveled would actually come and have a conversation virtually, but then definitely would travel for the actual pre-op and actual op. So it's just the way, guys, and it's the next step, and I absolutely see almost no negatives in it. If you wanted to go to the next stage, so what's the ideal structure of video appointments? Okay, so really quickly, this is the overall motivation tree that we teach in our trainings when we talk about how to deal with phone calls and also how to deal with actual appointments. So what I'm going to do, instead of introducing it now, I'll get into the top half, and I'll very, very briefly explain what we do. Laura, if you just proceed to the next slide. So here you obviously have what used to be the phone call, and there can still be a phone call here, or it can be a virtual appointment. Here's what I want you to do very, very briefly. Okay, I spent 8 hours teaching people to do this, so it takes a little longer to get people ingrained, but I'm just going to give you a nice little preview of what we do in, like, 2 minutes or less. So before we talk a little bit about what people want before. We got to get into that headspace. What's your problems? What are your challenges? What's your situation right now? How are you frustrated? How are you fatigued? How are you anxious? Let's move to the next stage, which is let's get into the past a little bit. Let's hear about the pain. Tell me about a time, this is number 2, PMI, which is past motivating incident. Tell me about a time that your glasses or your contact lenses really got in your way and that you really felt like, wow, this is it. This is the straw that breaks the camel's back. I got to get past this. I got to do something. Okay. Once you have that conversation, now they're feeling like, wow, much more motivated because they're back in touch with this reason why they called you in the first place or why they booked this appointment online. Then number 3, let's get right into the after. So what are the kinds of things that you'd like to have after? What are the kinds of, how would you like to feel? What vision would you like to experience? What kinds of things would you like to do with that vision? What new opportunities will unfold for you as a result of being glasses free, contact lens free? How's your life going to be so much better? Okay. And I want them to tell me, because I'm not selling the procedure. They're selling me as to why they want it so much. Okay. That's the whole turning of tables here. This is how you can get away without having to sell a thing. You just enable people to tell you what they want. And you just say, I can give that to you. And they say, okay, where do I sign? So next step, number 4, is the game, the FME. What that's all about is the future motivating event. So I love to actually attach a deadline, and it's a psychological deadline, nothing more, to an elective procedure. Why do I do that? Because there's no vital reason to do this right now. This is not an appendicitis. You're going to be fine. But if you can possibly attach a deadline, a psychological deadline to an elective procedure, you're going to get people closing a lot faster. So what I suggest to people is ask them, what are you looking forward to? Is there a particular event? Is there a holiday in the future, perhaps in the very far distant future? Is there a wedding? Is there something that you want to do without glasses and contact lenses that you really, really want to be sure that you get done? They get all this stuff done before you have that event. And they might tell you, and if that's the case, then all of a sudden that reframes the conversation to say, I got to get it done to be ready for that, okay? So the next stage is now you get it after you've done with the emotion, and it's kind of like a tree diagram. So the top of the tree is all about emotion, and now we talk about the trunk of the tree, which is supporting the emotion. We sell on the emotion, right? And then we justify with logic, the hard stuff, the objective stuff. So here's what we do. We talk about their failed attempts. What have you done in the past that hasn't worked for you? Get them to tell you, well, I went to this surgeon and I wasn't so happy with the way that it was treated. I went to this clinic and I felt like a number or a sausage factory. You know, just listen. Don't necessarily agree or jump in, but listen. Just make it clear that you are their listener. Then second, must have priorities. What has to be on the list of the things that you choose a clinic to go and have your surgery with? What are the top items? Okay, get them to tell you. Maybe it's price, maybe it's quality, maybe it's safety, maybe it's expertise, maybe it's technology, maybe it's experience. I don't know. Maybe it's results. But you just got to know what that is. And because if there's an objection later on, you can play to that. You can tell them where you actually stack up on those priorities. Number 7, nice to have criteria. What are all the nice things that would be cherries on top? Okay. Let's say this is a must have, but these are nice to haves. What are those things? Maybe in that case, it's the price. Maybe in that case, it's location. Maybe in that case, are you safe? Is it safe to actually come in during coronavirus? Okay, that's where you talk about that. But again, you get that information, and you make sure that you've got that so that if you need it, you can discuss it. Decision maker, is there anybody else? Number 8, is there anybody else who's interested or in making this decision with you, who you have to consult? And would you like to bring them to the face-to-face? I like that because I don't want that face-to-face appointment to turn out into, something that turns out into be like, well, this was a very nice doctor, but I need to talk to my wife, or I need to talk to my husband, or I need to talk to my lawyer, or I need to talk to my accountant. Okay, what this is all about is bringing all the people who have a decision-making authority and bring them in and influence into the consultation. Now, that may be a challenge, but at least perhaps you can invite those folks in virtually down the road so that they can actually have a conversation with you, because again, social distancing, you don't want families in there, but that's the idea. Deadline, okay, so given the fact that you have this event in the future, when would you like to be free and clear of this procedure? That's your psychological deadline. And next step, it's like, given the fact that you want to be free and clear with this procedure by then chances are you probably want to have this procedure at this stage, maybe a month before, 2 months before, 3 months before, whatever you think is best for your patients to feel comfortable and that you feel comfortable that they're ready to have that. They might be saying, I want to go and scale the Kilimanjaro, or they might be saying, I want to do a river trip down the Amazon. Whatever it is, you got to be sure that you give them that space. And you say, if it's the bigger they ask, the earlier they have to do it because they got to be free and clear. That's the next step. Then you have a conversion. So what do you have to do? Okay. No, yeah, we can definitely go there. It's no problem. Yeah, we're good. That's the whole thing, right? And look, like I said, I teach full day, 2-day sessions on this stuff. I teach staff how to do this. They double their conversion rates. This is quite typical. So, I think that with this little taste, I think you'd be more than capable of handling video appointment and making this work for yourself. So here's some to-dos, okay? And by the way, you don't need anybody else to do this. You can, given the right skills, given a little bit of budget, you can do all of this yourself, okay? So number 1, get and configure the Calendly. That's first thing. Number 2, get and link up that Zoom account, okay? Again, if you want to have online consultations. We see great value with that, but you could just have the Calendly account for face-to-face. That's cool too, that works. Right? Online booking is here to stay, so that's a nice thing to get into. But it'd be great if you offered the Zoom because a lot of people are going to want that. It's a great way to make connection. Number 3, get a payment gateway and link it to Calendly. Again, you only have to do that if you're going to take payment. I recommend potentially taking payment at the end, and it's a nice way to actually make that happen without having to worry about, how are you going to actually get payment, checks and things like that. Just do it right online. It's easy. Number 4, synchronize Calendly with your diary, calendar, or schedule. That's a must. But if you're just doing virtuals and if you're out of the clinic, you could probably just use Google Calendar or Microsoft Outlook, which is normal for you, if that's what you already run. But if you want to start doing this into the future, you're going to have to synchronize it. But nicely, there are a lot of software that's run on clinics that talks to Google and that talks to Outlook, and there can be a bridge made to synchronizing with Calendly. So that's a nice bonus. Number 5, and this is totally optional. You can integrate it on your website, or you can have this thing sitting in the cloud. Calendly has its own place. Zoom obviously has its own place. The payment gateway lives on its own. All of this stuff can happen on its own. You don't even have to have a website, okay? But if you want a nice branded experience, if you want people to feel like they're part of your brand the whole way through and that you've done this for them as one collective unit, and that's important for trust sometimes, integrate the thing on your website so that they don't leave and it's all part of the experience. Number 6, optional, promote it to your lead list. Like Mike said, you can do this through email, through SMS, but if you don't have a lead list, if you don't have a big stack of people waiting in a big queue to follow up with, that's okay. Look, don't let that stop you. you can still go and do the number 7, which is pay for traffic. You can put it organically, certainly, you can put it on social media posts and things like that, but paying for traffic, whether it's on social media like Facebook or search engines like Google, one or the other or both, they're definitely going to fuel some of the results that you're looking to have, which is at the end of the day, getting your diary book, filling up that pipeline, securing that pipeline so that you don't hit the return to normalcy, or we should say new normalcy, from an absolute cold start, where all your other colleagues have actually beaten you to the punch and collected a lot of these patients who were really still keen to get engaged with people like you, and did so with people who had virtual consultations available and online book. Okay, so don't be that guy. Be the people who actually have the opportunity available to your patients and let them take hold of it. Now,
awesome.
Great. So the next step. Now, look, you can do this yourself, or there's an alternative. We can do it for you. And look, we wouldn't be doing this webinar unless we had an opportunity to help you guys to do it with us. And if that's interesting to you, like I said, you can do all of these things yourself. That's not a problem. And then, in fact, I encourage you to do some of those things. But if you don't have time for this kind of stuff, if you don't have somebody technical on hand that you trust, if you don't want to worry about waiting 2 weeks for a web designer to actually call you back, we can do all of this for you. So how do we do it? We're not going to just get into that right now. The best thing to do in respect of your time is let's book a call. So if you're interested in booking a call with us, we can actually discuss it with you. It's about a 20-minute call. And here's the best part. You can try out the Calendly system for yourself. You can follow that link. You can click it. Go and actually choose a date, choose a time. We'll ask you a few questions. It's totally free. Don't worry, we're not charging for this. You give us a call. We have a conversation with you. 20 minutes later, we know whether or not you're suitable to have this kind of thing integrated into your website, or, whether we can give you some advice to actually get it up, on the cloud, whatever. Now, if you can either click that link or write it down, it's easy, bit.ly/virtual clinic, or you can take your phone out, right? Real simple. Open up your camera and just scan that QR code, and it'll just pop up the URL on your phone, and you can actually book it, and you can experience the online booking on mobile, which is kind of cool, because a lot of people today, especially millennials, who do not want to pick up the phone if their life depended on it, will want to book online, and they'll be doing it for their mobile. So you really want to see what it looks like on mobile. So I encourage you to try it either way. Okay.
Great.
And that's what we've got.
Yeah, I hope you've gotten an idea as to how critical it is to get virtual consultations going in your clinic. As we said, do it by yourself. You can do it by yourself. You absolutely don't need to do it with somebody else. But we put this here for those of you that don't have the time or don't know the steps, and sort of technical things sort of escape you. That's totally fine. But absolutely, as Rod said, if you've got and I think most of you do have the ability to do it on your own. These are the steps. Take a snap of this. Get going. You can get the tech going. It's very straightforward, and many clinics have done this over the last. We've helped them with these kind of steps to get going on their way. So get started basically today is our message, and this is really why we put together this webinar, so that you have the steps that you need to get out in front of what's surely going to become the standard in clinics around the world, is having the ability to do online consultations and letting people book them themselves, because it really does increase the efficiency in your clinic, and it aids their ability to have help. Basically, it extends your ability to give people the help that they need during this crazy time that we're living in. So thank you all so much. I don't know, do you guys have any final words before we sign off?
No, just very enjoyable chat as always. And I would echo what you said, that, virtual consults are here to stay. This is a great tool to help you to streamline your operations and really help patients this is what they want. We've been getting overwhelmingly positive feedback from patients about this. So it's definitely, now's the time to get on it. Rod?
That's it. You got it. You always want to be serving your customers. We always want to be forefront of the curve. You want to show like you got the latest tech going. You want to show like you're current and you're progressive, and this is one way to do it. So, and what's really nice about this too is you can wrestle back some independence as well. You don't have to be dependent on call centers. You don't have to be dependent on hiring a whole bunch of staff. You know, online booking, it just really democratizes the ability to get in touch with patients who want what it is that you have and are able to even potentially pay for it, you know, after you've had a quick conversation with them. So, you know, we love the idea, and we really, really hope that you guys, you know, do some of these things on your own, or if you like, we can do it for you. There's the code. You can scan it with your phone. There's a link. You can click it, and or you can type it in bit.ly/virtualclinic, and you're good to go. But with that, I'd like to say that's it. We've got it, and good luck to you. Stay safe as always, and you know, as you return out of lockdown, as you get back into the clinic, we hope that you adopt some of these technologies, and that we hope that everything goes well for you.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed this webinar, I'd highly recommend that you watch a bit of a longer webinar on the overall big picture of what's coming in the market and how to survive the coronavirus crisis for laser and refractive clinics around the world. So take a look at that. Just look that up, and it'll pop up for you on Google, and you can have a watch of that. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.